Well, welcome back to Ideas at Work and Beyond. That was compelling television. I really appreciated the first segment. I know we were sitting back in the control room watching that. That was very compelling. Now we're switching gears a little bit. We have Helena Abrentis, and she's a well-known candidate for Mayor of Danbury. And we're going to get into some questions. We also have the phone lines open at 792-4101. Please call in 792-4101. And I understand you'll answer any questions about any issues, whether they have to do with, municipal policies or anything else, because this is a chance for people to get to know you a little better.
I will do my best.
Okay. And I know I was asking you a few questions because I have an interest, not just the political issues, which we're going to get into, some of these questions that were on your blog, but just to tell at least me, and hopefully the viewing audience, a little bit more about yourself. You said you moved to this country when you were 5 years old.
Yes, we came in June and I turned 5 in July.
Okay. So your earliest childhood memories are essentially of the United States.
And I started kindergarten at Morris Street School that fall. And I followed through the school system, going to Rogers Park and graduating from Danbury High School.
Okay. And we won't get into dates because then people do the math and that's not fair. And you have 2 sons.
Yes, I have 2 sons. Daniel, who is a junior at Fordham University. He has 1 more year and then he's going to Columbia. He's getting his degree in physics and engineering. And I have another son who is at the University of New Haven. He's a freshman.
Okay.
He's majoring in criminal justice and he's on a full ROTC scholarship through the Army, and he'll be serving once he graduates.
Okay, now let me just, not to get totally off track here, but you have a son who's an ROTC in the Army. Any concerns about the war in Iraq and the fact that they are rotating troops there?
I have a lot of concerns, and sometimes I worry tremendously, and I have told him, that he didn't have to accept a scholarship, but he truly wants to go in and serve, and he'd like to work for the CIA or the FBI one day, and he's very motivated. He was also commander of his troop at Danbury High School. It was the Air Force ROTC, so he's very motivated, and he truly likes it and enjoys it.
Interesting. Now, how old is the son who's in ROTC?
He's 18. He turned 18 last October.
See, I find this interesting because I think the students now that are 16, 17, 18, in a lot of ways, they are the first generation that are a product of the attacks on 9/11. And that I think, I don't know what the motivation of your son. The reason I'm getting at all this is I have a 17-year-old son as well, and he, somewhat out of the blue, has decided to go ROTC as well.
Well, the ROTC program is an outstanding program in the school system, and we're very fortunate in Danbury. It's been in existence for quite some time. It was actually there when I was going to high school. But because of the war, there's a lot more students that are motivated to get into the program. And it also teaches them some responsibility and caring, and they do tremendous amounts of work of volunteering. He did almost 500 hours of volunteer work in the 4 years that he was in high school.
Wow.
So it's very impressive to me, and that's what we've basically taught them.
So his motivation into going to ROTC is just because it'll help with his education, and he appreciates the discipline, and it's his chance to serve.
Yes, and he's planning on taking Arabic next year, which just gives me more of a headache.
Wow, interesting. Now, I find that very interesting. Okay, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Why in the world are you running for mayor of Danbury, Connecticut? I mean, you have a thriving career. You're a paralegal. You work all day. You come home. You also have a restaurant that you operate. I assume this is profitable as well.
Yes, it is.
So you work all day. You come home. You're working at the restaurant. I understand you just came from there right now. Why in the world do you want to go knock on doors, talk to people, answer questions, to become mayor of Danbury? What is motivating you?
Okay, well, first of all, I actually enjoy going door to door talking to people.
Really?
I have done that every single election, no matter who the candidate is, and even when I ran. The first term that I ran for council in the 2nd Ward, Paul McAllister and I were the 2 candidates running on the Democratic ticket.
Right.
And I think we covered every single household in the 2nd Ward, except for some of the condominium associations, because we weren't allowed to go in there.
Okay.
But I've walked for other candidates, and it's actually good because you get to meet people, and they get to tell you exactly what they think and the changes they'd like to make. And they talk to you, so they get a feeling for the type of person that you are.
Right.
And I think politics is very important. There's a lot of people that make comments. They never participate in government. They don't go to council meetings. They don't voice their opinions. But they will say things in a bar, as an example, or in the restaurant, or no matter where they are.
Say a restaurant like the Atlantic Restaurant, which I understand is a fine eating institution.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I've always made a comment that if you truly are not happy with the situation, then you need to go and you need to voice your opinion. Okay. So I am not happy with the way the city is being run. And I think that I can truly make a difference because I truly care about this city. I was brought up in this city. I may not have been born here, but this is basically my home, just like anyone else that was born here. And I am tremendously upset. I don't like the overdevelopment that's occurring in the city. I don't like the traffic situation. It's just, there's nothing for our children in the future in this city at the rate, if you look at the city in the direction that it's going. And I would like my children one day to want to stay in Danbury.
So what makes you say there's nothing in the city for our children? What do you mean by that?
Well, with the overdevelopment, what activities can our children do in the city? Really nothing, unless they go someplace else. I mean, lately, if you read the newspaper, the ice skating rink, which is a wonderful facility, they end up having basically a riot and police officers getting hurt. There's something wrong when something like that is happening. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of the divisiveness within our community, and we need more police officers within our community. We don't have enough of a police staff. At this point, a lot of police officers have left and moved to other communities.
So you see some divisiveness in the town of Danbury, and you feel that you could bring to the table a sense of building bridges, a sense of more harmony, a kinder, gentler Danbury.
Yes, I think I can. And also, one of the benefits is I am fluent in Portuguese, and I speak Spanish also. And one of the things is people need to understand that there are laws that people have to abide by in the community. And they have to be educated to these laws. And if anyone can explain that to them, I think it's myself, because of the fact that I do speak the foreign languages. And people are willing to learn, people are willing to assimilate to a community, and that's very important, because if you're coming to the United States, you have to abide by the laws. If you're going to another country, you have to abide by their laws. And it's critical that people learn and adjust to the system of the government in the United States.
Okay, so in a sense you would say, as far as the immigrant, and I understand you don't really appreciate that term, that label, immigrant, or...
Well, I'm an immigrant.
Okay, well, I am as well. But you sort of broaden the term. But what I hear you saying is that you could be a voice to the immigrant community and saying, hey, you know, you have to abide by the existing laws. Correct. You have to register. You have to pay your taxes. You have to at least begin the process of becoming legal.
Right.
And you could be a voice to that community, having just working within that community.
Correct. It's very important that they are taught what the rules are and what the regulations are within the city. And basically, I don't feel that that's happening at this point, and they don't understand that. And if you want to come to the United States, you have to adjust to the system of the United States, and it's imperative. When we came to the United States, we learned what the laws were of the United States. My parents paid taxes. My parents worked very hard. My dad was a construction worker. He started working for E. Paul Kovacs as soon as he came to the United States. My mom went to work in a factory. She was a seamstress, and we attended school. And I lived next door to an Arabic family, the Dimians and the Jowdis. And it was a community. Everyone helped everyone else. If my parents had to work and we needed to be watched, the neighbors would watch us. It didn't matter that I was Portuguese and they were Arabic, or it wasn't an issue. But it's become more of an issue, truly, I believe, because of 9/11. But all people are not bad, and there's a lot of people that are actually here legally that are nice people.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about it before, and it may be a bad example, but that movie Gangs of New York, you know, which was set in I think like the 1860s, because it paralleled the Civil War. Very violent movie. I mean,
very harsh.
Very harsh movie. The same idea. There were the natives, the nativists, who were, you know, considered themselves indigenous Americans. They'd been here for a few generations, and then there were the newcomers coming. I think it was the Irish were coming in, or whomever it was, and it was always this conflict. I mean, this isn't new. This isn't unique to our generation.
No, it's.
But I do think that the numbers are pretty big at this point, and I think what you're talking about, assimilation, becoming legal, dare I say, a path to citizenship, which I think the current administration is talking about, is something you'd like to work with.
Definitely, but the issue is it has to be handled through the federal government. The first place where it has to start is with the federal government actually doing their job. It wouldn't have gotten to the point that it has if the federal government actually proceeded and needed to do what they need to do. The local government is very limited to what they can do with people within the area. And it's just caused a lot of hostility and animosity amongst people. And a lot of people don't talk to each other. If you look different, they look at you and they don't necessarily want to talk to you. I remember the day that I went to City Hall, and I went to go pay my taxes, and there was a group of people outside of City Hall with a petition, and a man kept on staring at me. And I just walked by, and I went, and I paid my taxes, and I came back out. And he stared at me again. So finally I turned around, and I said to him, is there something wrong with me? Do I look different? Is it because I have dark hair?
So this was someone who was taking the...
Yes, and I said, did you think I was an immigrant? And he said, yes. I said, well, I am, but I am an American citizen. And I turned around and walked away. And I thought that was a little bit offensive to myself after being here all these years and being involved in the community and being part of the government and doing all I can to help the community.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks for that little background. Now, there are some questions. And by the way, the phones, if you'd like to call in, it's 792-4101, 792-4101. We'll take your questions. But there were some questions that we got online. Do you have a plan for more recreational programs for the youth of Danbury? Currently, there are very few programs.
True. I actually led the effort. As a leader of the Common Council, I was a legislative leader on the Common Council during Jean Iroquois's tenure, where I served over 6 years to add new youth programs. We had a committee which was organized to start a skateboard park. We met several times. We came up with a proposal, and it was forwarded to the mayor. It was in turn included in the bond package, and the bond package was approved. But since that time, nothing has actually happened with the skateboard park. And we had a location where to put the skateboard park, especially since you don't want children on parked benches with the skateboards where they can injure themselves. You'd rather have them in an area that's provided for them. A young teen gathering center with recreational and enrichment programs. I'd like to organize that and make it available to the teenagers in our community because they do need a place to go and to associate with other people. And I will work to see if we can develop an indoor sports soccer venue that would meet both youth and adult recreational needs. I know that New Milford has the soccer facility, which is wonderful. They play soccer, you can play baseball. There's tons of activities you can do in there. And also Trumbull has a phenomenal facility. I've gone down there several times where my youngest son has played soccer on various occasions, and we really don't have any place like that except for the ice skating rink in Danbury.
And that's where they're having riots and the police have to go in there. So
True.
You could just be creating more venues for riots if you were to look at it.
No, our youth needs a place to go.
Okay, but they'll behave better in the soccer arena as opposed to hockey. Well, hockey in and of itself is a violent sport, you know, in itself. Anyway. Okay, I'd like to know Helena's views on the mayor's budget, seeing that State Senator David Cappiello called Bouton's moving up the date of the budget irresponsible, and Representative Godfrey called the budget a folly. I want to know if Helena thinks that it was right for the mayor to present a budget so early that based on imaginary figures from the governor's budget. Let me just say, I'm on the Board of Finance in Ridgefield, and I didn't have a problem with the mayor offering to the Common Council the budget early. It gives them more time to deliberate. That was my view. But what's your view?
Well, they actually didn't have more time to deliberate because
they would have had more time if he delivered it later?
No, he cut it short so that they had to make a decision much sooner. They didn't have that much time to actually deliberate on the budget. They didn't have that period of time plus that extra month.
Okay.
It was cut down to a very short time frame because the finance director was leaving.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I do agree with with Representative Godfrey and Senator Cappiello. First, this is the mayor's budget, not the director of finance's budget. The mayor should know what he proposed in every line item in the budget he presented to the Common Council, basically. And therefore, there was no need to move up the timetable just because the director of finance, as I had stated, was resigning. He should have stayed with the schedule, followed the decades by mayors of both parties, and presented the budget to the council in early April, at the latest, as the charter of the city requires. On the matter of including the governor's numbers in his budget, he only did this to paint a rosier picture at the time.
Okay.
He delivered the budget. My concern is that he will have to raise taxes even higher again, something he's done every year since he's been in office. We've always had a tax increase. And also, my concern is if the legislature does not pass that state income tax increase, what happens to the budget that he proposed for Danbury? Because that includes the state income tax increase. Yes.
On the edge. Okay.
So where's the money coming from? And it's a concern for me because it's going to impact the taxpayers in Danbury. And I just think it's a little irresponsible.
Okay. Fair enough. When did the Democrats declare war on Republicans and vice versa, and to the detriment of the general public?
Actually, I don't believe that there's a war, and
There isn't a war?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
And I do not declare war on anyone. Anyone that knows me knows the type of person I am, and I have issues that I feel very strongly about, and I will voice those opinions. There should always be a civil debate. About the issues at every level of government. That's why we have checks and balances within our government in the United States. And it's a healthy manner to deal with issues, and that's what the founding fathers of our country wanted us to do. That's why they came to the United States.
Okay. So you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Correct.
And
I don't believe in hostility against an individual. I just believe that issues have to be discussed.
All right. Just out of curiosity, to play devil's advocate here, you seem to be saying that Mayor Bowden's taxes are going up, and that's a bad thing. We can agree on that. But at the same time, you're proposing, youth programs and parks and different venues and so forth that I would assume the government is going to pay for.
Well, what happens is there are tremendous amounts of grants that are available, and people do not really take advantage of the grant issue. I'm actually meeting with an individual on Wednesday who has an outstanding program, from what I understand, in Florida, an educational program. And what they do is they have access to finances through grant programs, and they benefit certain schools that show a certain improvement. And it's not money that's coming through the taxpayers of the local community. It's money that is available through grants that people don't even take advantage of it. And her and I are meeting on Wednesday. We're sitting down, and we're going to be going over what she does and the plan that they use in this town in Florida and how it's increased the education level in many of its students.
Where do these grants come from?
They come from the federal government.
Okay. So they're federal government grants for recreational facilities, and you would apply for these grants, and we would get the recreational facilities so we wouldn't have to raise taxes.
We used to do that when I was on the council. We applied for many grants in order to make things available. We applied for grants to purchase land, to save it through the Terry Weil. I mean, through Gene Iroquez's tenure, we saved tremendous amounts. We added tremendous amounts of land to that area where it could never be developed. It was for recreational purposes.
Okay. Will you encourage employers to come to Danbury who pay a livable wage and provide benefits? Now, a question like this is a bit of a softball, wouldn't you say? I mean, because what are you going to say?
Of course.
No, I'm not going to encourage employers to come to Danbury that pay a livable wage and provide benefits. How can we spice this up a little? This does not include box stores or fast food restaurants.
Yes.
Well, how are you going to get those high-paying jobs with all the benefits? And,
it's the same way we used to do it before.
Okay.
When I was on the council, we approved a 7-year tax deferral only for businesses that were moving into the area, such as GE Capital. They came in, they brought in over 200 jobs, and it's a great company,
and they're still
great
here?
benefits. They are still here, and that was during Gene Araquez's tenure. He also did the same thing for Belimo, but that was before I was on the council, where they had a 7-year tax deferral. And there are several other companies. Sendent Mobility was another one that had a tax deferral. And that's what you want to do. If you're bringing in business and you're making jobs, then you provide an incentive for those companies to want to stay in the area. But you don't do that for a private developer.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question, because you're waxing eloquent about these wonderful companies that come in that are providing these great jobs. When does that then become overdevelopment? Or when, I mean, can you have your cake and eat it too? Can you have kind of a, no traffic, no, limited development, hearkening back to a bygone era where Danbury was, less crowded and wonderful, and still at the same time attract these high-paying, providing benefits type jobs, not McDonald's and large box.
Right. Well, yes, of course you can. We have a tremendous amount of facilities that are actually not working at this point. We have warehouses that are closed. We have buildings that have absolutely no activity, and those buildings can be used to start innovating work again, start bringing back business into the area. We have a lot of blue-collar workers who most of their life, the only thing they did was work in factories. Right. And they've all left the area. And most of these people no longer have jobs. And it's very imperative that they have jobs so they can support their family. And in turn, these businesses provide insurance for many taxpayers in the area, and as you know, without insurance you really cannot survive, especially if you own a home or if you own anything, because they will put a lien on your home if you cannot pay a bill to the hospital.
Yeah, well, that's true. I have one question. I have an opinion on this. I mean, the gist of this question, and by the way, these questions are written in on the website, but they say this does not include the box stores and the fast food restaurants. You have a restaurant, right?
Yes, it's definitely not a fast food restaurant.
Not a fast food restaurant, but you have someone that has to bust the tables, right?
Yes.
And you have someone that has to wash the dishes.
Yes.
You have someone that has to mop the floors at night.
Yes.
Is there anything particularly wrong with those types of jobs?
No, it's a job. I actually pay a little bit more than probably most restaurants for the individuals that do work for me.
Okay.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with those jobs.
But I mean, that's not a $70,000 a year with full medical, dental, 3 months paid vacation, and a family or a company car and a cell phone. Those aren't those type of jobs. They're entry-level, semi-skilled labor jobs.
When I graduated high school, I worked at Burger King.
Okay. Now look at you. You worked at Burger King, and now you're running to be mayor of Danbury.
Yes.
So my question is, I mean, inherent in this question is somehow working at fast food restaurants and box stores is a bad thing. I look at it as, maybe I'm overly idealist, I look at it as the first rung on the economic ladder.
Correct.
You learn the importance of showing up to work on time. You learn about customer service. You learn on how much... Maybe you learn how much you don't want to work at Burger King your whole life, and in and of itself, that's a good lesson.
Well, I don't think the individual meant working at those locations. What I think was they didn't want more of them to come into the area. It's a great starting place for students, kids in school. I mean, I was 16 when I started to work there. It taught me responsibility. I had to be on work on time. I had things I had to do whether I liked them or not. And you moved up in the ladder also within that business. And it's the same thing in my restaurant. I will just as soon wash a dish that the dishwasher hasn't washed, or sweep the floor or vacuum as anyone else. I'm I'm the owner of the business, so it's very important to me that the business runs properly.
Yeah.
And there's no embarrassment in any job that any individual has.
Yeah, and I think there's an innate dignity in labor, and at the same, in the same breath, I think that there's a problem with, able-bodied Americans when jobs go wanting, they won't take those jobs. I think it's a.
But I think we put that into, it's a certain mindset that we feed.
Yeah.
To each other, and so that just stays in the mind, and then you assume that you cannot do that. But a job is a job.
Yeah, a job, and you may aspire to work somewhere else. You may aspire to be the mayor of Danbury and now work at Burger King, but that doesn't mean that starting out at Burger King is necessarily a bad thing.
Well, I've always taught my children that they can do whatever they want in this country. They were born here. They can be president if they want one day, but they have to work for it.
Yeah.
And they have to be honest and go forward and do whatever they have to get to that point.
Okay. Would you amend the city charter, and what would it be?
Actually, yes, I would. I believe the city charter is long due for a revision. Last time there was successful charter revision was under the Iroquois administration in the early 90s. This mayor has not adhered to the spirit or intent of the charter. Examples would be the finance director, who was the personnel director, the parks and recreational director, who is also in charge of parks maintenance, the deputy fire chief, along with the financial settlements, etc. Many issues that I feel have not been followed through as the charter states. I am committed to working with the Common Council to establish a charter revision commission, and I will propose recommended changes for the commission, and the public would have to consider it and agree to the charter revision, but also it has to go through the Common Council, your requirements through the law, and it's very important that rules are followed and laws are followed.
I agree laws should be followed. And finally, do you support the mayor's tax increase? And I'm going to take a wild guess.
No.
Imagine that. Who saw that coming?
No. He's raised, well, my problem is I'm a taxpayer. I own property, I own a restaurant, etc. And I'll tell you, I pay a lot of taxes.
Not quite livable wage, not providing benefits type jobs, which I think are the backbone of America. But sorry, go ahead.
No, he's raised taxes every single year that he's been in office, as well as sewer and water rates also. Right. And I really feel that that's unacceptable, because during the administration, when I was on the council...
You are a Democrat, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so are you telling our highly educated viewing audience that vote Democrat if you're against tax increases?
I will do whatever I can to bring the taxes down, because
that hasn't necessarily been the history of the Democratic Party.
Well, actually, in Danbury it has. When Gene Iroquois was mayor, taxes actually went down and then went back to the level they were the 12 years that he was in office.
Okay, so the Democrat in office, taxes are low and stable.
They were in Danbury during the Iroquois administration.
Okay.
Since then, they have gone up every single year. And I will definitely do what I have to do, go through the books to try to keep that momentum.
Will you be willing, right here on television, and Ivan, we're rolling tape, I would imagine, on this, would you be willing to make a read my lips, no new taxes pledge to the highly educated voters here in Danbury?
I would love to do that as long as...
Then do it. Go right ahead. We have a minute left, right?
Of course.
Just look right into that camera.
I do not want to increase taxes in Danbury.
So you're saying, read my lips, I do not want to raise taxes.
Correct.
Doesn't that quite the punch?
No, because I need to look at the financial situation of the city, and I wouldn't know that until I was in office and I actually looked over the books.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate very much you coming in.
Thank you.
Tonight's program was very inspirational, educational. I think we discussed some very important issues, HIV/AIDS, and some very important issues. We had a chance to get to know you a little bit better as well.
Thank
maybe my son and your son will serve in the same ROTC unit.
Amen.
That would be interesting. And next week, we're very excited. We're going to have sort of a special on Ridgefield, Connecticut. We may have the first selectman, myself, co-chairman of the Republican Town Committee, and they'll be joining us. So tune in next week to Ideas at Work and Beyond, and thanks so much for tuning in.